Hey, everybody. Before we start this episode, I do just want to give a brief, I guess it's trigger warning that we do talk about our cat and her dying a whole bunch on this episode, Lucy, our cat. So if that is a thing that will bring up some unpleasant sensitivities for you, you might want to skip this episode, rejoin us in the future. We promise to not talk about our cat's untimely and extremely unpleasant death extensively in future episodes. Anyway, it might come up in passing, but nothing that would require the sort of trigger warning that I am giving on this episode here. So here we go. Are you familiar with the concept of posting through it?
No.
It's usually applied to when if you say something that's everyone agrees is abhorrent on Twitter, instead of retracting or shutting the fuck up, it's like when you double down and post even more and more. There's like that drill tweet that's I'm not owned, I say as I shrink away and turn into a corn cob or something like that. We're trying to podcast through it.
What should we call this episode?
Well, I called the short that we put out Lucy. So
Dead Cat Spectacular? Cat Funeral?
Yeah, we haven't poured one out for Lucy yet. You're drinking...
I'm literally drinking whiskey out of a mason jar.
You're drinking single malt scotch at a surprisingly early hour for this day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the weekend after Lucy died. It's been a few days.
I think you meant went to a better place.
Yeah,
she's biting people in heaven now.
The vet tech person at the emergency vet that so Lucy had been to her standard vet, but shortly after coming home we had to rush her to the emergency vet, the overnight vet, which is where she died. But the woman who came in at the end to, as we were I would say wailing in a way that was even alarming to them at the emergency vet.
Oh, I think everyone who worked at the emergency vet was very upset by us.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty vocally inconsolable, but she came in at the end and I really liked her. I thought she had a great way about her. She was sort of a grizzled woman, I would describe her as. She'd seen some shit. But she did tell us that Lucy was in heaven.
Yeah.
Which was news to us. I had to learn that my cat was dead and that heaven exists all in like a couple minutes. That's big. We've been telling everybody that we've talked to. Our friends have been really nice to us.
Yeah.
Over the last few days. I feel very grateful for the conversations we've had with them. But we have told this story to them a number of times now. But do you want to recount the environment of the emergency vet? I don't know if any of you have been to an emergency vet hospital that's open exclusively overnight before, but
so we got there 2 minutes after it officially opened.
Yeah.
By chance. I mean, that's when we
needed
got to the door.
Yeah.
So glad it was open then.
Yep.
And there was someone who had 2 children and a slightly bleeding from the neck dog. And they were standing in front of the receptionist window. And I basically had to yell, like, my cat's having trouble breathing, get out of the way at them. And like throw her carrier through the receptionist's window where she got, rushed back. And then as I was filling out the paperwork, like within 3 more minutes after that, an absolutely distraught couple came in. One of them was crying and they said, "Our dog is dead, but can somebody come to the car and check?"
Just to confirm that.
Just to confirm that it's dead. It hasn't moved in 30 minutes. And these children were still standing there. Like, these people who came in with their bleeding from the neck dog definitely thought that their situation was going to be the most
pressing
harrowing
situation of the.
And it was just quickly followed by a bunch of, these children had to watch a bunch of adults come in screaming and crying and describing horrible things that had happened to their animals.
I mean, I know that especially in the COVID times, but in all times for a lot of people, getting like childcare is very difficult proposition. But if you I
mean, what are you going to do if you've got two kids you have to watch and you also have to go to the emergency vet? Well, those kids are getting scarred.
Yep.
That's going to happen.
Yeah, no taking that out of their eyeballs. When we came out at the end, and you have to go through that like morbidly mundane procedure of handing your credit card at the front desk to say thank you for
trying.
Thank you for trying for a few minutes. Here's hundreds of dollars. We had to wait because there were just dozens of bloody footprints all over the lobby. Paw prints all over the lobby that they were mopping up. It was just a war zone.
And as you pointed out, so this was all, the entire thing, we were there for 45 minutes. So that's the first 45 minutes of their overnight schedule was all of that. And I have to assume this is like a typical day for them.
Yeah, I guess so.
So that's really...
God bless them.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll even release this. If we do, we may strategically cut quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is not what people want to hear about at all.
Well, it never is in the opening. That's sort of by design at this point. Try to be as off-putting as possible from the get-go. But usually if we have to cut a lot of stuff, it's because Lucy will be licking herself loudly and obscenely for several minutes, and we'll have to pause the recording to allow her to conclude her absolutely obscene self-grooming, or
she'll hop up on the coffee table and it'll shake and make some noises. Yeah.
She'll like to interrupt this process.
She liked to be involved.
Yeah.
She wanted to be involved in whatever was going on.
We should have clipped a lapel mic to her collar, which she didn't wear. But we could put a collar on her, clip a lapel mic to it, and had her, just whatever audio she produced, make it as though she were a third host. Offering mostly gross noises.
Yeah. You're Roman.
You're Allison. Our cat Lucy is in heaven. And this is, I guess, is Seedy Business, the podcast. We'll see.
It's Seedy Business. It's Seedy Business.
So we decided to record today, I think, as a way of doing literally anything more than putting out a podcast. It's just like some, a thing in a routine that we can do.
Yeah. I think doing some stuff, not as like a pure distraction, but we were talking about this yesterday. When a person you're close with dies, there's like a bunch of stuff that's sort of obvious that you either can or should or have to do, like arranging a funeral, cleaning up their home and effects, taking care of their other loved ones in some material way. Like there are things you can do that are both a little bit distracting because they're an activity, but are also like involved in the grieving process and like in the relationship.
I think especially, as you mentioned, the sort of managing of other people who are also grieving, or, I mean, in our case, we were Lucy's only friends.
Yeah, so we don't have anyone else to...
In many ways, she was one of my only friends.
Yeah. I mean, not too many of my human friends listen to this, so I hope if one of them hears it, they won't be offended, but she was my best friend.
Yeah.
I guess you're my spouse, so you could also be offended by that.
There was some good dialogue. It was a Twitter dialogue on how spouses shouldn't be your best friends.
Well,
I'm not
what
sure.
did they say about cats?
I think cats are fine. But yeah, I mean, especially during the pandemic, she really was one of my only friends. And
We talked about her every hour at
yeah,
least.
right.
Right? I mean, she was the main thing going on a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Star of the fucking show. And honestly, the COVID was probably the best time of her entire life because we were home so much more often.
Yeah, she loved it. She had a good last couple of years.
I read a thing.
She liked living here in this house in Florida also.
She did, yeah. Lots of good window watching.
Lots of birds and lizards and
Yeah.
snakes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. There was something I read about how vets were saying that cats were getting ornery during the pandemic because they wanted their owners to leave periodically. But I feel like that was extremely not true in Lucy's case.
Yeah, that's not how she was at all. I mean, she always could have. We spent much of our time in the living room, both working when we were working from home. She could have chosen to be in the bedroom or something. She pretty much 100% of the time would choose to be in whatever room the people were in, even if we had a bunch of people over. She didn't want the other people to touch her, but she definitely wanted to be around them and observe them and be where the action was.
She wants to be where the people are. She wants something dancing.
Yeah, sure.
She doesn't like dancing, though, I don't think. Where's that Dancing with Cats book?
You know, it's in that box sitting over there. I was going to send it as a gift to Mireille and David, and then their beloved cat also died.
Oh, God, yeah.
And so it's just still sitting in a box along with a container with a sampling of that turkey dinner flavored candy, the Thanksgiving dinner candy corn.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And like some other random
you're letting
treats and candies that now they've been sitting there for like months and months and are all stale and horrible.
You got to let the Thanksgiving candy corn age into its mature, robust flavor, I think.
It gets an oakiness.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should crack open that Dancing with Cats book again at some point. But the construct under which we got ourselves to record today was that we thought we would do an episode instead of on a particular catalog on the leafy green vegetable that Lucy so lusted over, that being arugula.
Her favorite food.
Her favorite food.
She loved arugula and peanut butter, both of which seem pretty inappropriate for a cat, but
natural parts of their diet.
Although I was talking with another friend who also recently lost a longtime companion cat of 15 years, who apparently her cat's favorite food was off-brand Pringles.
She scoffed at standard Pringles, but
these were some kind of like hippie shit they were getting at the fancy food co-op, and then the cat would like try to eat one, sort of with the same degree of competence that Lucy displayed in eating arugula.
Just complete incompetence because she doesn't have the right teeth or mouth to do it. I will say we got a really nice message from Betsy on Twitter in which she noted she looked for an arugula emoji to use, but Apple has, frankly, offensively not included one of those yet. But yeah, so we thought we would talk a little bit about arugula today, read some arugula descriptions. Incidentally, it was Lucy's favorite food. We also like it a lot.
Yeah.
We used to, of course, grow a ton of it in Durham where it overwintered and
all year round.
Yeah, we always had it. It was nonstop. Just fucking withered and died here, but
as has pretty much everything.
Yeah. Well, Allison, tell us what is in the garden.
Well, yesterday we finally went out to try to water some plants. And
it stopped raining, by the way, here, which is a little odd because this is still like heart of hurricane season. But for the last week, it's been dry. It seems like the weather has turned to dry weather, maybe for the rest of the season. I don't know. We'll see.
Anyway, a lot of stuff that was, even the hibiscus, which actually was one of the only plants we had purchased this year that was actually doing well and growing, is just very obviously dying, which sent me into a spiral of how everything is dying.
Yeah.
Feel pretty bad about that.
Well, it's in heaven, the hibiscus.
The thing is, it's not dead yet.
Mm.
So it's lingering.
Mm. Its eyes are cast upward, waiting till the moment where it can be reunited with Jesus Christ, washed in his blood.
We harvested a bunch of kumquats for reasons I still don't understand. They ripened in the middle of summer. And we tried to make our own kumquat liqueur.
And we tried it.
And it seems fine. The kumquat tree is just continuing to ripen and also continuing to set new tiny fruits.
Yep.
I don't know what's happening. It's not dead.
No, it's extremely alive.
That's one thing that's in the garden.
Also, things not dead include that pumpkin plant in back and the strawberries.
Yeah, the pumpkin that was a gift that's supposed to be locally adapted. That appears to be true because despite all my efforts, it is alive, though it has not grown or set any fruit. Like the plant is still quite small.
Yeah.
But it's surviving, and that seems like...
That's all you can ask for.
At this point, yeah. That's it. We went to this great little garden store some number of months ago and bought a bunch of herbs and stuff. Every single thing has died.
Yeah, all the herbs died.
Everything. So I do think we should consider getting some house plants.
That is true. Yeah, we had always resisted them because, of course, they would poison and kill our cat.
Yeah, she would definitely have tried to eat them. But also, there was a while where I lived with her with a roommate who had a lot of really lovely houseplants.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to trying to eat them, she also used them as litter boxes.
Of course, yeah.
So that would, both of those things would be problematic.
Wow. Imagine being a cat and watering a houseplant with your piss and then eating it as it grows, having been fertilized by your urine.
Yeah, you really...
The cycle of life.
A cat that doesn't try to pee in a potted plant is
not living
sort
its
of a
best
miracle, right? How could it possibly differentiate between a potted plant and a litter box? Like, how would a cat know the difference between those things? It would have no basis for making that distinction.
Yeah, if anything, a potted plant should be more appealing to it. It's dirt. It wants to be in some dirt. But yeah, I think you're right that we should get some house plants.
Maybe we could keep those alive better than stuff outside. Things outside, it seems like there are certain ornamentals that really thrive here and truly no food plants.
Well, I was talking, we've been having Zoom choir rehearsals for church, which not sure exactly how well that is going, but one of the women who sings in the choir was mentioning that she has also struggled to grow stuff around here, has struggled finding good place to buy fresh produce, and she drives north into Georgia to get produce periodically. So that's like, an hour 20 from here is what she is willing to drive to get good produce.
Wow.
So that's not auspicious.
Extreme.
Yeah.
Well, I've almost finished this whiskey, so.
Well, there's more whiskey where that came from. All right, Allison is re-upped on the single malt scotch. Let's talk about arugula a little bit. So most of us are aware arugula is an edible annual brassica plant that's eaten as a leaf vegetable and has a peppery, bitter flavor. It's known, of course, we learned from Gerald Stratford, as rocket. It's known as rocket in most English-speaking countries, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Gerald Stratford's classic, "My first early rocket, very pleased. Cheers!" tweet. It can grow from 8 to 40 inches tall. The leaves are lobed with 4 to 10 small lateral lobes and a large terminal lobe. The petals are creamy white with purple veins and yellow stamens. I know the whole thing is edible, including the seeds are eaten. Have we ever tried to eat arugula flower?
Yeah, all the time.
We
used to eat it quite often.
Oh, is that the one?
The flour that used to be in our salads all the time?
Oh, those were arugula flowers? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are tasty. It is an excellent source of vitamin C, vitamin K, potassium, some other nutrients. It is native to the Mediterranean region. It's been a popular ingredient in the cuisines of modern day Italy, Turkey, Morocco, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt. That whole region, uses it extensively. It was brought to the Americas by British colonists, but it was not really eaten popularly until about the 1990s. In India, the seeds are pressed for oil that's used medicinally and cosmetically. It's used as massage oil. I believe the seeds are pressed together into cakes for animal feed as well. The oil's known as taramira or jamba.
Do you know, are the seeds, do they have a mustard seed type flavor?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah. There's a 2017 PBS interview with an arugula farmer named Carl Glansman, who notes that it, quote, thrives well on total abuse, which is what we all want, I think, in houseplants, in things for our garden.
Yeah, I mean, it's my number one pick, I think, as a garden staple, because it will freely reseed itself. In warm climates, it just becomes a perennial, basically. Like it gets woodier and woodier stems, but continues to live and continues to spread as it sets more seeds and sends runners and stuff. It's hard to kill. It's prolific. Greens are, of course, relatively expensive in the store.
Yeah, it's
and
one of those
always
things
come packaged in plastic. So it saves you a ton of plastic if you can grow it, because it'll just keep growing and spreading, and you could meet like all of your salad needs.
Yeah.
That way, if you were looking for something to plant as a first garden plant,
yeah,
I would say arugula is a great choice.
It's at the top of the list for things that you will make your money back on very quickly instead of buying in a supermarket. Do you thrive well on total abuse?
I mean, not really. That's why I didn't do that great in grad school.
I think I might thrive well on total abuse. I'm not implying I'm abused by you, by the way, but I don't know, self-abuse.
Interesting.
That's motivating.
Interesting framing.
There's a whole section of my outline about arugula as a aphrodisiac in antiquity. So it was considered sacred to Priapus, which is a minor Roman fertility god, clearly the namesake of Priapism. The Roman author Columella wrote, and it was also known as Eroca. The Eroca, Priapus, near thee we sow, to arouse to duty husbands who are slow. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't mention. So
it gives you a boner?
It gives you a boner.
Wow. I mean, we just listed a bunch of good reasons to grow it, but gives you a boner is usually a top reason why people want anything. So.
Yeah. It was referenced by Virgil in verse, who wrote Venerem revocans eruca morantem, which, implies that arugula revives the sleeping Venus. And Pliny the Elder wrote in the Historia Naturalis, if those leaves of wild arugula picked with the left hand are pounded and then drunk in honey water, that they serve as an aphrodisiac. Do you know anything about this? Why picked with the left hand? That's the nasty hand?
I mean, that's the kind of shit. People had all sorts of like, you gotta go it clockwise around it when you pick the thing, or you gotta use your right hand, or there was just like a whole bunch of associations.
Mm-hmm.
The idea
is the left hand for nasty shit. If you're doing dirty deeds, do you do those with your left hand?
I don't think I know culturally.
Mm.
I think they had like poop sponges. Like, it's not like in cultures where you reserve one hand for eating and because the other hand is used for hygiene.
Right.
I think they used like a sponge on a stick or something.
Sure.
I'm not really sure.
Ovid wrote that arugula was lascivious.
Well, he thought everything was lascivious. Come on.
It's true. The Greek physician Dioscorides said that rocket eaten in rather large quantity arouses to intercourse, and that its seed has the same effect. It was apparently forbidden from being grown in monastic gardens due to it making folks horny. Arugula and lettuce, as they are today, if you go and get like fucking spring mix in a plastic container in the supermarket, there'll be a mixture of lettuce and spinach and arugula or something like that. But apparently, arugula and lettuce have been mixed for forever, really, for their perceived opposite qualities, which are that arugula is spicy and sexy and an aphrodisiac, but that lettuce is cooling and calming. Those are you want that pairing. Arugula is a boy and lettuce is a girl, just like cats are girls and dogs are boys. Do you agree that I'm thinking of other foods? Certainly beef is a boy and chicken is a girl.
Okay, I'll name some foods and then you tell me if they're a boy or a girl.
Okay.
How about that? We don't have to have opposite pairs.
Definitely.
Beets.
Beets are a boy because they're like bloody. Wait, maybe they're a girl because they're bloody. Beets are a girl.
Wow.
Beets are a girl.
You really did a 180 on that.
I'm doing a great job already. Beets are a girl. They are because they're bloody, and also it's like they're too exotic of a food to be a boy.
Corn.
Corn is a boy for sure. That's like the because corn is America and America is a boy.
Okay. A sandwich.
Damn, good question. Great question. I mean, it clearly varies by type of sandwich, but I'm going to say that a sandwich in general is a boy because it's what a construction worker takes out of his bag while he's sitting on a big beam over the New York skyline in order to eat his lunch.
All right, one more.
Whoa, wait, why stop there? This should be a whole episode as far as I'm concerned.
Maybe we should do that. Write this down. Green beans.
Good question. So green beans are like long, and you could make the case that they're phallic, but they're also really skinny, and no one wants a real thin, long dick. I'm going to say they're girls because they're like pregnant with those little seeds inside.
Well, I mean, that's accurate. Yeah. Wait, are there any really obviously non-binary food plants? I mean,
great question.
They're all plants, so yeah, but
yeah, dear listener, of course, this whole exercise is making fun of, I hope you recognize the idea that
I mean,
cats are girls and dogs are boys. I think a radish is non-binary.
I don't know, a radish. Well, that could be. I mean, I always thought a radish is sort of like a skater.
Like a punk? Like a skater punk?
But like a little, not in a, like a yard kid.
Yeah.
Like a radish would
like
be.
Like a real dirtbag sort of kid.
But like they're, in a nice way.
Yeah.
Well, seems like we've all learned a lot today already, so.
My mother was very invested in Lucy being a girl.
Yeah.
Lucy, of course, as we've mentioned, is the name
was a cat.
that. Yeah, right. Lucy's gender is, in fact, cat.
Yeah.
It was a name that Lucy came with. I mean, we used female pronouns for her just because that was her name, I guess. But I don't know that I perceived gender in Lucy. But
I don't think cats have
gender.
Gender, really. The other funny thing about her being called Lucy is that, I'd had a bunch of foster cats before her. Like, I'd been fostering for a little while before she came into my life. And I always gave them a new name when I got them, like immediately, other than the one the shelter had given. Because I thought the names I gave them were cuter. And then I offered them to the shelter as an option in case they thought it made them more adoptable. And she's the only one I didn't rename because, again, I was supposed to have her so briefly. And also, frankly, her personality was so off-putting when I first got her. And then by the time I was adopting her, I'd had her for so long that the decision to like potentially rename her seemed just too fraught. And I couldn't bring myself to think of anything good.
Oh.
And so she was forever named Lucy instead of like Caligula or something.
That's what you would have named a cat at that point.
Well, I had previously named a
cat. I feel like we had Caligula watch parties in college. That seems like a thing that Reed kids would do too.
Yeah, well, also just it means little boots, which is a great name for a cat with socks.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe there are people who don't hate this.
This podcast?
Yes. It's pretty insufferable.
Astonishing. Wow, I miss Lucy.
Yeah, me too.
I was saying that my mother, anytime she saw Lucy do anything, she'd be like, look at what a girl she is doing that, fucking licking her own asshole. My mother growing up, this is another story we told our friends recently, but you know, I'm the oldest of 3 sons that she had, and she would always note that she would lament that she was outnumbered in the house because she had her husband who was a man and 3 sons, and then the dog we had at the time was also a boy, and then we also had a frog, and she would list the frog along with her husband and sons as evidence that there was no feminine power in the household apart from her.
Wow.
That
That frog was really
it's
doing gender.
It's the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back for her, that it was a boy frog.
Are you even certain that's true?
Absolutely not.
You guys assigned a gender to that frog, right?
I think its name was just Frog for us. Wait, hold on. Frogs are boys, though.
And toads are girls?
No.
Because that's the other corollary of
yeah.
the sheep are girls, goats are boys.
Right.
If you
Toads are
name
boys, frogs are
something
girls.
where there's a pairing, like turtles are girls, tortoises are boys, I don't know, maybe it's the reverse.
Well, I was going to say, so if you take frog and toad to be the pair, then of course frog is girl, toad is boy.
But they're a gay couple, right?
Ideally, yeah. But I was thinking frogs are boys and like lizards are girls or something like that.
Lizards are girls.
Yeah. All right, where were we? In the 16th century, the herbalist John Gerard said, "Whoever taketh the seed of rocket before he be whipped shall be so hardened that he shall easily endure the pains."
I also just found out there's like a huge rash on my body.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think it's from being upset?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, this is new.
Maybe it's a whiskey rash. Maybe it's a chain smoking rash.
Yeah, I've resumed smoking cigarettes. I have ceased bathing. So really, either of those things could, I suppose, cause a rash to erupt.
Well, you've replaced bathing with cigarette smoking.
It just seems
It's
like
a
there's
fair
no
trade.
point in bathing with all the cigarettes I'm smoking. I'll just be disgusting again immediately.
Yeah, I follow your logic. I'm also concerned about the inexplicable rash, but
I wonder how long that's been there.
we'll update the listener on our next podcast as to the progression or recession of your rash. How about that? We could go to Strictly Medicinal and see what sort of herb we should ooze onto it.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's not COVID. That's the one thing I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah, I mean, that gives you like toe and finger rashes, not middle of your bicep rash. But yeah, do you like the idea that if you take arugula before you are whipped, it helps you endure the pains?
I mean, that's very horny.
The 17th century physician M. Pietro Andrea Mattioli noted that arugula augments sperm and provokes men to coitus. So it gives you more cum too, like milk.
Is this...
I think in our episode where we talk about what plants are boys and what plants are girls, we can also talk about what plants give you more cum and what plants give you less cum.
Oh, I'm sure there's an ancient medical text that
Tome on
explains
that.
all about that.
Yeah, we'll do some investigation. That sounds like a good episode now that I think about it. I'll note that arugula is referenced in the Bible in 2 Kings 4, verse 39. Or as Donald Trump would call it, 2 kings, I guess.
2 kings.
2 kings.
Do you have the verse in front of you?
Let me pull it up.
Like, how do we know it's arugula and not some other brassica?
I think they specifically mention Eruca, which is the ancient name for arugula, and its Latin name now. What is it called when something's a Latin name? Its scientific name? It's what?
I mean, like a Latin binomial. But the thing is that arugula isn't it just brassica oleracea?
Eruca sativa, I think.
Okay.
One of
Wikipedia says Eruca vesicaria.
Okay. One of them went out into the fields to gather herbs and found a wild vine, gathered some of its gourd and filled the fold of his cloak. When he returned, he cut them up into the pot of stew, though no one knew what they were. The stew was poured out for the man, but as they began to eat it, they cried out, "O man of God, there is death in the pot!" And they could not eat it.
I don't know what to I really don't know what to make
I don't
of
know
that.
what to take of that. Yeah. I think in the Greek it's oros. Gargir is referred to in 2 Kings as oros because it lights up the eyes, because it brightens or lights up the eyes. And that is eruca.
Hold on a second. Hello?
Okay, well, we just had to take a little break because Allison got a call back from a pet grieving hotline. So we took that call. Allison smoked a cigarette. I cried for a quick second.
I lost my whiskey somewhere in that whole thing. Hold on.
Is that it right there?
Oh, yeah, I guess I drank it. Correction, I guess I finished my whiskey during that.
Okay. If incidentally any of the pet grieving resources we are investigating for ourselves proves to be helpful to us, we'll certainly link to it.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, it seems like there are a few options. I've made contact with a few places, so we'll see how that shakes out.
In the summer of 2007.
Good transition.
Thank you. It's very smooth. During the ramp up to the 2008 election, then candidate Obama, he stopped in at the Van Fossen farm in Adel, Iowa, and quipped, "Anybody gone into Whole Foods lately and see what they charge for arugula? I mean, they're charging a lot of money for this stuff." And that tanked his candidacy.
And that's why Barack Obama was never elected president of the United States.
That's how we got President John Edwards at this point. I don't know. Somehow I guess John Edwards' infidelity to his wife during her cancer treatment.
They love to do that. They love to cheat
love
on their
to do
cancer-riddled wives.
For some reason, that had more, that was seen as a more salient gaffe than the arugula gaffe. But the arugula gaffe lives in infamy, I think, today. It's like on par with his wearing a tan suit that time.
Wow, that was pretty fucked up.
Then his drone bombing weddings. They're all like in the same category.
Yeah, same
basically.
level.
Yeah.
I actually have a personal anecdote that I always think of when I think of this Barack Obama arugula thing, which is in very early 2008. I went out to dinner as part of a group of students with the president of my college.
Wow.
And we went to a kind of fancy, like oven-fired pizza place, and the president of the college got arugula on his pizza, and I was like, that's what rich people do.
That's a power move.
And that's when I learned that that's what you do if you're rich. And so I've always put arugula on my pizza ever since.
In the same way that avocado is somehow like now conflated with elitism, even though it's cheap. In the same way, like arugula is not more expensive than lettuce.
Yeah.
But somehow it's for like nerds who are...
And it's more nutritionally dense for sure.
Yeah. Look, real Americans...
And easier to grow. Lettuce can be a little finicky.
It's true.
Compared to arugula.
Well, it's a girl.
Yeah.
Look, iceberg lettuce is for real Americans.
But iceberg lettuce is a boy.
Iceberg lettuce is a boy and arugula is a girl. But arugula is European. That's what they really got Obama on, that it seemed European and thus fancy. I caught that there was some sort of like movement towards renaming. I'm going to get this wrong, but I want to say like during World War II, like they had like Liberty cabbage or something. Like there was some predecessor to freedom fries that was
coleslaw.
Was it Liberty coleslaw?
I think it was Liberty cabbage. I think
Liberty
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. It was sauerkraut, obviously. Right? Wouldn't it?
Yes.
I mean, Google
exactly
it, but
right.
it must be that they were like, sauerkraut, no.
Right. Liberty cabbage, not sour. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. Thank you. There's an Atlantic article that I read that makes the case that shortly after this gaffe, I guess prior to this, kale and arugula sales were about even, but the real kale surge happened after this gaffe. So maybe people were like, I don't want to be seen as hoity-toity, so I'll...
Well, that backfired, right? Because kale is widely seen as hoity-toity.
Yeah, for sure. There's no winning.
Listen,
There's no winning.
Nutritionally dense, dark leafy greens are for libtards.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree.
We can all agree on that. Do we want to read a few arugula descriptions?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I pulled some arugula descriptions from some of the catalogs that we have enjoyed and admired. I thought we could read a few of those. You want to start us off?
Here's the Baker Creek description for common arugula. This delicious green has a spicy, peppery, mustard-like flavor, which is a rage in any salad and on sandwiches. We love this green sprinkled on pizza and sandwiches too. This is one of our most popular greens and is a great staple in any garden. With an incredibly high germination rate, lovely crunch, and tolerance for cool weather, some call this the perfect cold weather green. Plant densely first thing in the spring and trim regularly for tender greens early in the season. Succession plant every 2 to 3 weeks until the heat of summer arrives. Great for a second planting in late summer for a fall harvest. This garden treat is ready to harvest in as little as 4 weeks and can tolerate some frost. If wild birds and aphids tend to ravage your lettuce, try arugula instead. It is drought tolerant and incredibly easy to grow. But watch out, chickens love it too.
Which is a fun description all around.
Yeah.
Baker Creek, we admire apart from their affiliation with Ammon Bundy.
Damn. Yeah, apart from that one thing.
But I don't like the first two sentences. This delicious
It's good on sandwiches, and we like it on sandwiches too.
Yeah, that's a real fuck up, I think.
Yep. I have many regrets right now, but one of them is that we don't have any videos of Lucy trying to eat arugula, as far as I know. And we got to watch her struggle with it so many times, so cutely.
Yeah, it feels pretty bad that we don't have a video of that, I've got to say. It's really burned into my memory. I don't think I'll have a hard time imagining it, but it would have been nice to have video of that.
Yeah.
I've been like part of my grieving process, I think I've talked about with you, but is thinking like maybe I could just find a way to get a video of that. Maybe I could just, is there a way to make that happen? I think to myself, insanely.
Yeah, I've had just a series of completely insane thoughts that, I don't know, maybe I should catalog because some of them are so out there. But of course, since I suspected she might be quite ill in some way, and that probably the news from this vet appointment would be that she was on a timeline of, months to a year or something like that. I had already started sort of imagining like, well, what are we going to do? I personally have even though I have not experienced the process of anyone close to me going through hospice or palliative care, I have a really positive feeling about what I know of palliative care. It's really great. It's a really great thing for a lot of people. And, I've certainly read people's blogs and stuff who are going through end of life care, and a palliative care team is so great. And so many really beautiful things can happen during hospice, during an end of life time period. And I'd started to think about okay, well, if we know that she's going to die in X amount of time, here are sort of the kinds of treats we can start to give her because we don't have to care about her long-term health anymore, right? Like we can do a bunch of stuff with her that we
let her eat a lizard.
would have like protected her from previously.
Yeah.
And like, because she also had some food allergies and stuff like that. So we could have just been like, yeah, fucking eat. You want peanut butter and arugula? Go for it. You want to eat a lizard? Yeah, why not?
Yeah. What's the worst it could do? Make you paralyzed for 5 days?
Well, yeah. Oh, poor Patricia Lockwood's cat.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like, I don't know.
Feel deprived of that.
Yeah. But the flip side is, of course, we are relieved from the burden of having to evaluate her quality of life on an ongoing basis to decide, like, is her life still worth living from her perspective? We don't have to think about that.
Yeah. I've never had to make those determinations for a pet before.
Me neither.
Yeah, I think that you have so much love, and your love like manifests itself in reasonableness. I think that I think you would do a very good job with that, and a very rigorous job with that. I'm worried that I would be terrible at it. That's a concern I have, because you're rational and I'm chaotic. You're a boy and I'm a girl. I'll read the native seed search description. This is their description of sort of standard arugula, also the Aruca sativa, but they have a particular, as they do, grower for it that they work with. This is they call it their D'Amelio arugula. Grown in Tucson for 35 plus years by an Italian family who brought the family seed with them to the U.S. in the 1920s. A variable strain with both deeply lobed salad leaves and simpler pizza-type leaves. Bright, sharp arugula flavor. Learn more about the history of D'Amelio arugula in Tucson from our seed bank collection. Both cold and heat tolerant, can be grown all year long in the low desert, though flavor is stronger in hot weather, milder in cool weather. So I guess the more deeply lobed leaves are better for salads, and the simpler leaves, the more like spinach-shaped leaves, are for pizza, according to this.
I mean,
I've never heard
I
that
had
before.
never heard that or considered it. But I will say, again, this points out one of the fantastic characteristics of arugula, which is that it's both heat and cold tolerant.
Yeah.
And much like Lucy, it's a plant that's very easy to get along with. Hudson Valley seed, wild arugula. Smaller, punchier, and hardier than standard arugula. What makes one plant tame and another wild?
I love that as a thought question.
People have co-evolved with plants over thousands of years. We have changed plants and they have changed us. Many of our sweetest foods are the most cultivated. But some plants have held on to the spicy, spiky, and wild ways they use to ward off hungry creatures that might browse and destroy them. Wild arugula is right on that cusp, tame enough to be delectable, and wild enough to keep our taste buds on their toes. If you already like arugula, you'll like wild arugula even more. If you already dislike arugula, well, steer clear. Wild arugula has an amplified arugula flavor, while its smaller leaves and pretty color make for a refined impression. Grab a small handful and toss chopped into a salad for a terrific arugula bite, or steam older leaves for use as a side green. Well, I mean, that is a perfect obituary for Lucy.
Yeah, that's an incredible description.
It's really great.
If we do an end of year list, I think
that's got to be
on.
Yeah, that's Lucy. Tame enough to be delectable.
You know, I had another one, but let's end there. I don't know. Follow us on the things. I'll put the links in the thing. I recorded a trigger warning for this episode that I presumably have put at the top of it.
Again, though, if we call the episode like the Dead Cat Spectacular or something, I think that'll help warn people off.
Well, it should be the Dead Cat Spectacular : arugula, I think.
Wow, I really fucking loved that cat.
Yeah, me too. How do we end the show? What do we usually say?
You have to say a conditional
I have
statement.
to say a conditional statement. That's how it's listed on our outline. And assuming you are a cat and that the vegetable is arugula, you should eat your vegetables.
We're all just doing the best we can.
Speak for yourself.
It's city business. It's city business. Boring talk about seeds, city talk between boys. Mind-numbing chatter about our mules and spores. We'll dig a ditch and moan and split the difference. City business.